just start out by telling us kind of who you are, where you are, where you're a counselor, and kind of a little bit of your background, how you got there, and what the journey's been so far.
Sure. So I have the privilege of being a counsellor for a ward called Abbey Ward in a lovely market town in Kent called Faversham. It is a little coastal market town. It's one of the sink ports of Kent, and it's just a really great place to live and work and raise my family. I'm very privileged to be elected here. I first was elected in 2019. Um, and at that point, there was only one member of the Liberal Democrats on the council. There are now quite a number of us, so it was a really exciting time to be involved. The reason I kind of stood originally was because in 2013, the county council were threatening to close a children's centre, which I was actually working at the time. And so I went along to all of the kind of consultation events and went to go and listen to some debates at County Hall. And what really shocked me was the kind of lack of diversity of people in those conversations. So there were often very few women there. There was certainly very few young women there. I had just had my second child, and the children's centres have been an absolute lifeline for me and for all the people that I knew that had used them. I met all my friends through the children's centre, and I'd really seen the kind of impact of those centres on picking people up when they'd really fallen over and were really kind of in the in the in a bad space. So I kind of thought to myself, well, I can either just accept that this is a bit of a grim reality, that these people are speaking about something that directly impacts me and my peers, whilst we're not in the room,
Yeah.
or I can kind of roll my sleeves up and get involved.
Get
So
in the room, yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of what I did. It took me a little while. I was doing lots of community campaigning between kind of 2013 and 2017. And then I was asked to stand by my local party for the 2019 elections and started campaigning about 2017. So if you'd kind of, my background is in hospitality. I ran bars and restaurants. And if you'd asked me kind of 20 years ago if I thought I'd ever end up in local government, I think I
Ah,
probably would have laughed. But
that's so, sorry, not to
no,
interrupt, but our young counselor in Scotland, actually, his background is also in hospitality.
yeah.
So that's really interesting. I love that.
Yeah, so I think like hospitality has loads of transferable skills for local government. Like I
Yeah.
can speak to people. I'm used to speaking to people that I don't know. So when I'm knocking on doors, that's not something that's particularly intimidating for
That's,
me. Um, you get to deal with conflicts, so the kind of argy-bargy stuff of the chamber is all fine. And there's just like pubs and hospitality are kind of the heart of a lot of communities. So you
yeah.
kind of know what's going on if you've worked in bars and hospitality. So I think it's
And
really
not
helpful.
only just like the wider community, like the neighborhoods,
Yeah,
like to the micro
yeah,
level.
for sure. Yeah. So I think it's a really interesting pathway. I know loads of people that have gone from hospitality into government. So but yeah, I mean the continuation of that lack of representation is something that really spurs me to kind of carry on doing what I'm doing, to get more women elected, more people from underrepresented groups elected. I also am a neurodiverse person, so getting neurodiverse people elected and respected within local government is super important to me. So it's something that keeps me fighting to improve things for people.
Something we got to hear a little bit about was kind of the children's center that you were involved with. Are there any projects that you have been, either that or other projects that you're just really proud of, or that just kind of get your energy up, or that kind of
Yeah.
get you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, so There's loads. I mean, it's a real privilege to be involved in local government because I do feel like you get an opportunity to really kind of make small but impactful differences.
Yeah.
So, as an example, I've worked really closely with some developers locally to look at improving the accessibility of play spaces for
Oh.
children with disabilities. So, my mum is a wheelchair user.
Mhm.
And I think you gain a real perspective of how inaccessible the world is for people who are wheelchair users,
Yeah.
if you kind of experience that life with somebody.
Right.
And so working with a group which I established in Faversham called the Faversham Disability Forum, we looked at ways of making public services more accessible to people with mobility issues and wheelchair users, but also children that have sensory needs. So accessibility and accessibility to the world is really important to me. And then the second kind of work, I suppose, that I've been super into is looking at
Yeah.
environmental projects. So
Mm.
um, this is more kind of with my town council hat on because I'm a double hatter. We've been doing some work around becoming a pesticide-free town, and
Oh,
we have some green roof bus stops. So we have biodiversity planting on top of our bus stops and our flat
that's
roofs.
cool.
Yeah, and in 2023, we won Town with the Best Buzz, which is a an award which is given to a town that has done a lot for improving biodiversity for pollinators. So
Really cool.
we're really proud of that. At the Borough Council, I've done quite a lot of work around violence against women and girls.
Mm.
So we have committed to some work around safer streets, to reducing spiking and making that something that
Mm.
hospitality venues are very aware of, and the hospitality venues have been really supportive of those campaigns.
Yeah.
Um, and then some work around just making local government more accessible for people who are not retired. So
Yeah.
it's not,
That's massive.
yeah, it's not the easiest environment to be part of if you're a working
Yeah.
person or you have caring responsibilities. So we put it as a motion I put in 2019. We now have a parental leave scheme um, for councillors. Which I was quite surprised that like only 1 in 10 councils had that in 2019. I think quite a number of them have them now, but it means that if you go off on maternity leave or something, that you're given the grace to be able to do that.
Mm.
So that was really cool. And
Cool.
yeah, just there's loads. I could go on all day.
There's so
I
many.
just
That's
love it.
massive.
Yeah,
And you could just keep going and keep going, I'm
yeah.
sure. Oh my gosh. Well, so I mean, that is all so exciting. Like, I just want to ask you about every single one of those individually, but just for the sake of time, kind of, so we've gotten to talk a little bit about, the things you're excited about, the things you've accomplished. What have been some of the challenging things, some of the difficult things or the risky things or
Hmm.
those things that have been really just tough from the perspective of either the projects or just being a counselor in general.
Sure. So um I think there are a lot of barriers that exist for people becoming counsellors. I mean, it's quite well documented that there are a number of barriers that are very difficult for people. I think that the time commitment is a huge thing. So I work full time as well as being a counsellor. So
Wow, yeah,
I
that's
do a lot of my counselling stuff, in the evenings. I'm lucky to have a very flexible job
yeah.
that understand my role, but it is a huge time commitment.
Mhm.
So I'm very lucky to have very supportive family and friends. But I think the most when I was first elected, somebody said to me, the thing that you'll find most frustrating about local government is how slowly everything moves. And I'm quite a doer. I'm a
Yeah.
doing person.
Yeah.
So I mean, to get my parental leave into policy took 3 years.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
really to change that, it was really a couple of sentences, but you have to go through so many kind of layers of bureaucracy to get there.
Yeah.
Um, so that's frustrating. Um, the way that people can behave towards especially women in
Mm,
government can be really problematic. As I said, I have fairly thick skin. I worked in bars for a long time.
right. That's yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but, even with that, sometimes, like,
Oh,
the
yeah, I
things
mean,
people
that
say to you,
yeah.
they're not kind, and social media abuse, I think, is a real problem for a lot
Mm,
of counsellors. I think we're in a kind of environment where, at the moment, it seemed like okay to say some pretty outrageous things to people, um,
mhm.
and I think we all need to kind of work together to combat that, and we've been working with um, campaigns like Debate Not Hate, and
That's great.
yeah, to look at how we can, reduce that friction and make sure that there's not, that everyone's okay and that everyone is being able to kind of fulfill their role without any fears. So I
Mm,
think social media is a problem. I think
yeah,
time commitment, and I think that the general system just isn't set up to facilitate people who have jobs and caring responsibilities.
yeah,
So that needs to change from within,
yeah.
but for it to change from within, more people that actually experience that and live that lifestyle need to be elected to push for that.
Right.
So
Oh, it's a little bit of a catch-22, but it
yeah, it's a
sounds like
chicken and egg.
you're chipping away at it for sure. I mean, you're
Yeah.
making a difference, and exactly what you did is you saw a problem, you got in there, and now you're changing it, and
Yeah,
that's
because I
brilliant.
think I think what's really important is that you recognize the problem, because I think you have to recognize that there's a
Yeah.
problem, but you have to be solution focused on it, because if you just
Mhm.
recognize the problem, it's very easy for you to kind of just go, do you know what, I can't fix that. But
Yeah.
actually, if you recognize the problem but look at how you get out the other side, it might take a long time, but
Yeah.
it's got to be done really.
Yeah. Yeah, then you can keep that energy, and like you
Yeah.
said, you're a doer, you're motivated. That's so good. Well, okay, so this has been so good to hear both about the positives and about the negatives, or the challenges, I should say.
Yeah.
But looking ahead, looking to the future, looking to those projects that you're still working on, what are you most excited about, both for what you're going to get done, but kind of also as if you have any kind of future hopes and goals and dreams and just all of that, love to hear with your future hat on.
Sure. So I think, like, talking about kind of the challenges and looking forward, I think there's lots of residents at the moment, especially where I live, that are really struggling. So I can see my role over the next kind of few years is being a kind of support for a lot of people, because, more and more people are using food banks, more and more
Yeah,
people are uh, not able to kind of stay here because the rents have increased so
yeah,
much and that kind of stuff. So,
totally.
and part of my role that I find most rewarding actually is being able to help people that reach out with those problems and signpost them in the right
Mm,
direction. For me personally, we have a neighbourhood plan which we've been working on with the community for about 5 years, which we're hoping to take to referendum this year, which is super exciting, and the culmination of some really joined up community focused work, which we're all very proud of. Um, there are a number of things at the borough council which I'm looking forward to working on. So we are currently doing an kind of an equalities consultation, which I've been pushing for it to be more reflective of the LGBT plus community.
very cool.
Um, and like, I guess, like, personal ambitions, like, I've
Yeah.
always just wanted to be like a really good ward councillor. Like, I'm s-
Yeah.
I am standing in the general election whenever that is called for
Yeah.
my party. But I'm so invested in local government. Like, I
Yeah.
think it has real potential to make really significant small like changes for our communities, and
Yeah.
that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Another like tiny project that I've been working on is having, so in 1645 in our town there were three women who were accused of being witches and were
Yeah.
hung as a result.
Oh.
um, and they've kind of been erased from our history because it's such a grisly part of our history. We just don't
Mhm.
speak about them. So we're having a stone, actually, like a memorial stone, put in for them on International Women's Day on the 8th of March, which is really cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and like it's nice. So it says their names and it says, "May we speak their name in hope of a world free from persecution."
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it's a reminder that as a community we've gone through some kind of pretty dark times, but we've come out the other side, and we shouldn't forget people that have paid the price for those dark times.
Absolutely.
And but also like that's going to be there, like that's going to way outlast me, which is just a
Yeah.
really cool thought. Like
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that project.
Oh, I love it. Oh, so many good projects, so much goodness still to come. Well, anything else you want to kind of throw out there, mention anything about that, your story or your work that you're doing that you want to shout about or share with the viewers?
so um so I suppose like I really would recommend people getting involved in whatever capacity they can in their local community. So that might not necessarily have to be, going into local government, but
Mhm.
I also support a number of small charities and um you know gr- little groups that are doing nice
Yeah,
things in the town, like community gardeners and
yeah,
environmental projects. So there's always really cool what's it called, voluntary work that you can
yes.
do. And I'd really recommend like chucking yourself in if you can, because
Hmm.
being able to give back to your community feels great, but also it just fosters a sense of who we are. And I think it brings people together in a really lovely way that can benefit the future of the area that you live in, but also like enables you to stand up for the things that you think are
Hmm.
important for your community. And whether that be in local government or in any kind of community way, I just would really encourage people to kind of go for it.
Yes.
Do something you care about.
Go for it. Do it. It's, yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, I can completely relate to that. I am the chair of a teeny tiny community garden group,
Yeah,
and it's the best. It's just
yeah,
the best. It's literally just on our street, and you're just chipping away. It makes you, like you said, makes you feel good, but it also, I think, it's a pretty big little drop in the bucket. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think COVID taught us a lot about that. Like
mm,
we saw some really horrible stuff happen during
yep,
COVID, but we also, on the flip side of that, we also saw like the community really rally together
absolutely.
and support each other and really like look out for their neighbors and
Mhm.
people that were vulnerable. And I think like it's very easy for those kind of community relationships to break down given the amount of work that we have to do as individuals
Yeah.
at the moment, the amount of kind of home working where you're not in an office and
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So I think anything you can do to foster those relationships within your community is a really
Yeah.
positive thing.
Yeah.
And people are so generous and giving with their time and with their expertise, and we should really be grateful for that and foster it as much as we can.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. This was such a joy. Thank you so much for
I really
sitting down
enjoyed
with
it.
me.